Hey trainers and dungeon masters, welcome to my channel where we blend the worlds of pop culture and Dungeons and Dragons. Today, we're transforming the iconic first 3 starter Pokemon into epic D&D monsters. We will start with the first stage of all 3 of these lines and evolving up until we have the strong final stage for your party to battle. For all 3 of these first stage Pokemon, they will be classified as small beasts, and we can make them neutral aligned because they align with any trainer that catches them. For the first 3 stats of these mons, Bulbasaur and Charmander will get an AC of 13, and Squirtle will get an AC of 14 because it has a sturdy shell. For HP, Bulbasaur will be the king in this department because he does have the highest base HP among these starters, putting him at 18 or 4d6 plus 4, where the other 2 will have 15 or 3d6 plus 4. Bulbasaur will be the slowest with a speed of 20 feet. Charmander and Squirtle will have a speed of 25, where Squirtle will even get a swim speed. Moving on to stats, I gave all 3 of these starters the same stat total of 61, and we will break them up differently for each of the starters. For Bulbasaur, we will put 9 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 12 in constitution, 8 in intelligence, 10 in wisdom, and 12 in charisma. For Charmander, we will put 12 in strength, 12 in dexterity, 10 in constitution, 8 in intelligence, 10 in wisdom, and 9 in charisma. And lastly, for Squirtle, we will put 12 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 12 in constitution, 8 in intelligence, 10 in wisdom, and 9 in charisma. They get a passive perception of 12, and Charmander and Bulbasaur get damage resistance to fire and poison respectively. Squirtle unfortunately doesn't get any damage resistances, but his evolution will get something to make up for this. For traits and attacks, we will cover them together for each starter before moving on to the next one. If we look at Bulbasaur, his Pokédex entry says, for some time after its birth, it uses the nutrients that is packed into the seed on its back in order to grow. So we gave it a trait similar to the camel called Bulb. Its back holds nutrients packed into the seed, so it can go multiple days without eating. For attacks, it gets a Tackle and Vine Whip, which is a weaker version of the Thorn Whip spell. I almost gave it innate spellcasting to cast the Thorn Whip spell, but I decided to make it an attack instead. This way, I can make it weaker and it can use it all the time. With this choice, I can also scale the power with its evolutions. Moving on to Charmander, his Pokédex states, the flame on its tail shows the strength of its life force. This doesn't really give us much to go off of in terms of stats, but I gave it the ability Flame Tail. The fire on its tail acts as a light source and casts bright light in a 15-foot radius and dim light in a 30-feet radius. In addition, I gave Charmander innate spellcasting to cast the Firebolt spell twice a day with its dexterity modifier as its spellcasting modifier. And for its attacks, it gets a simple Tackle. With Squirtle's Pokédex entry, it gives us 2 things. After birth, its back swells and hardens into a shell. We already gave it a 1 AC for this. And it sprays potent foam from its mouth. I don't really know what it means by potent, but I gave it innate spellcasting to cast Acid Splash, and hope that's what it meant by potent. For attacks, Squirtle also gets a simple Tackle. With all the stats completed for these 3, it puts them at a CR 1/8. Leave a comment down below which one you're choosing. When these creatures evolve, they become medium-sized beasts, and their base stat gets buffed. Ivysaur and Charmeleon get bumped up to an AC of 15, where Wartortle gets a bump up to 16. Ivysaur gets 71 or 14d8 plus 10, and the other 2 get 13d8 plus 10, giving them an average of 68. For speed, Ivysaur gets bumped up to 25 to match the others. One of Wartortle's Pokédex entries is, while swimming quickly, it moves its ears to maintain balance. To show this, we will increase the swim speed to 35. For stats, we're going to increase the base stat total from 61 to 72. For Ivysaur, it will get 12 in strength, 11 in dexterity, 14 in constitution, 9 in intelligence, 12 in wisdom, and 14 in charisma. With Charmeleon, it will get 14 in strength, 14 in dexterity, 10 in constitution, 11 in intelligence, 11 in wisdom, and 12 in charisma. And lastly, for Wartortle, it will get 14 in strength, 10 in dexterity, 14 in constitution, 11 in intelligence, 13 in wisdom, and 10 in charisma. Moving on to their abilities, Ivysaur keeps the bulb ability from Bulbasaur and gains 2 more. If we look at its Pokédex entry, the more sunlight Ivysaur bathes in, the more strength wells up within it. For this, we will make its ability sunbathing. If this creature has been in the sun for more than 1 hour, its attacks gain an additional damage dice with its Vine Whip and its Razor Leaf attack. It will also get the innate spellcasting 3 times a day, where charisma is its spellcasting modifier, and it can cast Poison Spray. This is to represent the poison powder of its move pool. For its attacks, it will get a multi-attack, which allows it to make 1 tackle attack plus an additional attack. Its Vine Whip gets a small buff. Its new move, Razor Leaf, is a ranged attack that deals 3d6 plus 3 damage, with a range of 20 to 60 feet. Strong in a range, but weak if you close the gap. Moving on to the middle stage fire starter, Charmeleon, Flametail is buffed, and now gives 20 feet of Bright Light and 35 feet of Dim Light. Its innate spellcasting can now be cast 4 times a day, and can additionally cast Burning Hands as well as Firebolt. For its multi-attack, it can make 1 tackle attack and 1 bite attack. Its bite deals fire damage to resemble the move Fire Fang. And lastly, we are going to give it a breath attack to relate back to Dragon's Breath or Flamethrower, where in a 15-foot cone, all creatures must make a DC 12 dex save, or take 9 or 3d6 fire damage, or half as much on a successful save. I like the looks of these 2 second stage evolutions, so let's keep the ball rolling with Wartortle. Unfortunately, most of Wartortle's abilities are given to them through their extra AC and swim speed. So for their abilities, they just get 1 more charge of innate spellcasting, where they can cast Acid Splash and Shield. This is to resemble the move Iron Defense. For attacks, it gets a multi-attack, where it can do 1 tackle and 1 bite attack. The bite is supposed to be the move, well, Bite. I almost made it deal necrotic damage because Bite is a dark type move. I think I'm gonna save the necrotic damage for a real ghost type or dark type Pokemon in a later video. Looking at the final product of these 3 middle stage, I'm pretty happy with where we're at, and it puts them at a CR2. If you're enjoying the video, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video. It helps me a lot, and thank you very much for the support. Moving on to the final evolutions, I will have to tackle them each individually because their stat blocks are a little larger than the others. So let's jump straight into the final grass evolution, Venasaur. Its armor class is increased to 17, and its HP will be 20 D10 plus 25, making it an average of 135. And for the final evolution, we will keep its speed at 25. For stats, all the final stages will get 97, and Venusaur will get 17 in strength, 15 in dexterity, 22 in constitution, 12 in intelligence, 13 in wisdom, and 18 in charisma. Its poison resistance evolves into poison immunity. Its bulb ability is now the flower ability, but acts the same. It also gains the sunbathing ability from its pre-evolution, and its innate spell casting is now 6 times a day, where it can now cast Poison Spray, Sleep to resemble Sleep Powder, and Moonbeam to resemble Solar Beam. Obviously, the beam will come from the sun, not the moon. For Venusaur's attacks, we will give it a multi-attack. 1 more tackle adding up to 2 tackles, and 1 more attack, which can either be the Vine Whip or Razor Leaf attack. Other than some basic damage buffs, the only buff is the Razor Leaf's range gets increased to 80 feet, still having a minimum of 20 to make up for its power. Finishing the grass starter line, we will now move on to the Fire Dragon Charizard. Charizard will get an AC of 17 and a hit point average of 124, or 18d10 plus 25. Its speed stays 25, but it gets a flying speed of 35 feet. For its stat makeup, it will get 18 in strength, 22 in dexterity, 16 in constitution, 12 in intelligence, 11 in wisdom, and 18 in charisma. Similar to Venusaur, its fire resistance from its pre-stage evolutions will evolve into fire immunity. The Flametail ability gets another buff when it evolves, and now gets 25 feet of bright light and an additional 40 feet of dim light. So this Pokemon and all its pre-stage evolutions would be great for a dungeon crawling party. Its innate spellcasting gets increased to 6 times a day and can cast the Firebolt, Burning Hands, and a Fireball. The multi-attack on this final stage also gets increased to 2 tackles and 1 bite attack, both moves getting an increase to their damage. And finally, this mon's breath attack. We are going to increase the range to 20 feet, where any creature in this cone must make a DC 16 dex save, or take 15 or 5d6 fire damage, or half as much on a successful save. Looking at this mon, it will be super strong, and I better hope you have fire resistance. Last but not least, 9th in the Pokédex, Blastoise. This beast will get an 18 for its AC, so it stays king for the AC in every stage. Hit points will be lower than the other two, but this will make sense later. Its hit points will be 112 or 16d10 plus 25. Its speed will stay the same as Wartortle, because no way you're telling me that this is faster than this. I won't believe it. For its stats, it gets 18 in strength, 16 in dexterity, 22 in constitution, 12 in intelligence, 12 in wisdom, and 17 in charisma. This evolution will finally get a damage resistance. All its pre-stages did not, but hopefully this will make up for it. Blastoise is resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. Because if an adventuring party finds this early, they won't be scratching the shell, unless they have a spellcaster on their team. For its innate spellcasting, it still has Acid Splash and Shield, but it gains Tidal Wave to symbolize the move Wave Crash. Just like the other mons, its multi-attack gets an extra tackle and a bite attack. Its bite and tackle get a damage buff. But the real piece de resistance is its water cannons. This acts like a dragon's breath attack, but instead of shooting one line like the blue dragon, it shoots two 20-foot lines that are 5 feet apart. And all creatures in these lines must make a DC 16 dex save, or take 12 or 4d6 bludgeoning damage, or half as much on a successful save. If the creature fails the dex save, they must make a DC 15 strength save, or be pushed back 10 feet. Finishing up these mons, I really like the fact he feels like a tank, and his water cannon ability feels very different from other abilities like it. With all the stats of these finalized, it puts them at a CR 6. These are all the Gen 1 starters, forged in D&D 5e. If you made it this far, please like the video. I'd really like your support, and leave a comment on what Pokemon you want to see next.